What is up, y'all? Welcome back. Unless this is your first time here, and then it's just welcome, okay? Just welcome. If you're new here, I'm about to sit here, do my makeup, and tell you a story, a true story. And we're going to talk about it in the comments down below. I'm here doing this every Tuesday and every Thursday. If you have any case suggestions, you can leave them down below. I do not do child cases, period. Period. There is a reason for it, and there is no exception to it. So, no, I'm not doing Michelle Blair. No, I'm not doing Gabrielle Fernandez. No, respectfully. I think people who are newer to the channel, they hear me say that, and then they might get to a video and it's a child case, and they're like, girl, but you did this one. Like, I thought you didn't do child cases. I had to establish that boundary. Ever since I established that boundary and set that rule for myself, this has been a lot less taxing. Let me just get into today's story, because girl, when I say we got a lot to unpack, it's a lot of foolishness going on, and we're going to talk about it. Here we go. On April 23rd of 2005 at approximately 5:33 a.m. Pretty dark outside still. There is a couple sitting in a car together on the side of the road when all of a sudden someone approaches the vehicle, ambushes them, lets off several shots, and takes off on foot. Moments later, a witness who heard the incident, they dial 911 and they report hearing a person screaming and also hearing the shots, and urges them to send help. The police arrive along with the paramedics, and they find a car slightly run off the road with two occupants inside, both of them slumped over by the time that they arrived. They immediately began to assist them. The news crews show up, and of course, this is all over the news, right? John Bassett is watching, and he immediately recognizes the car. It belongs to his nephew, Jeremy Warrior, and his wife. He's extremely close with his nephew, so of course he is very much concerned, and he decides to just go straight down to the scene and see what's going on. John gets down to the scene. He is asking questions, and he identifies himself as the uncle of the owner of the car. Now, at this time, police inform him that unfortunately his nephew did not make it. When he asked about Jeremy's wife, he is told that she did make it and that she had been transported to the hospital for care. Now, at the time that John had arrived to the scene, because he got there rather quickly, of course, they were still investigating what could have taken place, but they had ruled out robbery because the assailant had not taken anything. Jeremy still had his wallet on him. Nothing from the car was taken. It didn't appear that anybody tried to take the car itself. Nothing. It was just like somebody ran up, attacked them, ran off. And there was no obvious reason as to why this had happened. When Jeremy's mother received the news of what had happened to her son, although she was extremely grief-stricken, she was heartbroken, of course, she was thinking that this might have something to do with some trouble that he had gotten into in the past, because he had gone off to college immediately after high school, but he felt like college life was not for him. So after that first year, he decided to return home to Wichita, Kansas, get a job, and just see if he could figure out what path he wanted to take in life. Upon returning to Wichita, Kansas, he also begins dating a young lady. But unfortunately, the relationship really is not a good one. It's very much toxic, and eventually he decides that he no longer wants to be in the relationship. So he breaks it off with the young lady, but she does not take it well. Like, sis was not trying to accept it at all. She basically refuses to move on with her life and accept that the relationship is over. And this got even worse when she found out that he had moved on with another woman, and not only moved on with sis, but had gotten her pregnant, and the two were expecting. When she finds this out, she loses it. And I'm not sure if he was still kind of dealing with her, because you know men will do that sometimes. They'll go back and forth. So I'm not sure if that was the case, and that's how they ended up in the same house together on this particular day, but some kind of way they do. He ends up at her house. She decides to confront him about this baby and pulls out a gun. Very much a thin line between love and hate style. Of course, he is not trying to get shot today, so the two begin tussling back and forth over the gun, and during this tussling back and forth, it actually gets fired, shooting her in the leg. Regardless of this being an accident, Jeremy is sent to jail for assault. Jeremy spends a lot of this time self-reflecting and telling friends and family about all of his plans for his life when he gets out. How he's going to move out of Kansas City and start his life anew somewhere else, be a great father, make up for the years that he had been missing out of his daughter's life. In jail, he is considered and labeled a model inmate, and so because of this, he is given the opportunity to work outside of the jail at KC Heating Company. Let me tell you a story. You know I'm good for a little short story. Usually I get them in before the story, so I hope you don't mind. Why do I have a story for everything? And y'all made me very much aware that I left y'all kind of on the cliffhanger in the last video about how, you know, whether or not we got out the break room. I'll wrap that up at the end of this one. But anyway, this is really short though. So high school Brittney, preparing to go to college. You know how people were like, oh, you should do community service. It looks really good on your college application. So I'm like, okay. Didn't know a life risk was involved. I decide I'm going to do community service. Now, when I looked at the list of places available, I had a flashback of when I was at a retirement home in elementary school, and it didn't really go so well. And so I was like, I don't want to do that. I thought going to a park was going to be fun, but that's what I chose. Get to the park, it's so boring. Like, there's nothing going on. I'm literally just sitting at the information center at the front desk. All of a sudden, this bus rides up, and it looks a little different than any other school bus that I had seen. Then I noticed that it had, I don't remember what was on the side of the bus, but it let me know that it was prisoners on the inside, okay? And they all had matching baby blue jumpsuits on. And they get out in shackles. Now, at this moment, I'm taken aback, but I'm not judging. I'm just like, oh, okay, the prisoners here. Like, is it a field trip? What's going on? They get off the bus. They don't come inside, though. Like, they get them these big black trash bags and, like, these orange vests. And they go out and they start picking up trash. I'm like, oh, okay, they're going to use, you know, the inmates. This is like a job thing. They're going to come out here, pick up, clean up the park. They disperse out. They start picking up the trash child. They out there looking like some damn free-range chickens, okay? They just here, there, and everywhere. Some time goes by. I go to walk around because it's just boring. I go to stretch my legs. Now, I run into one of them, and I'm just like, hi, you know, I'm speaking because I'm polite. He speaks back because I guess he was polite. I don't know. Of course, he speaks back, and I'm thinking I'm about to be on my merry way, child. And then he is just like, oh, you're so pretty. And I'm like, thank you. Yo, why this man tell me he getting out in 3 months and ask me if I'm willing to wait for him? Girl, no, I'm not. I wonder what he was in for, though. I really do. But, baby, I felt like Ebony on Players Club. Like, I just came to do community service. That's it. Like, I did not sign up for all of this. And I know what a lot of y'all gonna say. Inmates need love, too. I know. I agree. They do. They need and deserve love, too. Except for, you know, the ones I talk about in these stories. But, child, they got sites for that. So, just because I don't want to love him don't mean nobody else does. Anyway, back to the story. It was at this job that he met his now wife, Alesia, and at the time, the two were both in a relationship. He was still dealing with his girlfriend on the outside. And Alesia herself, she was not single. Sis had a whole husband, but she was going through the process of a divorce. They both were experiencing a lot of relationship issues, which is how they started, you know, talking and bonding and forming a relationship, giving each other advice and also receiving advice to really form a bond over their failing relationships, which over time develops into an attraction to one another. And the two of them form a relationship. Jeremy completes his 4 years and then he is released on probation and offered a job. With this job offer and his newfound love in Alesia, he decides that he is not going to leave Kansas City after all. And of course, his daughter is there, so that's even another reason for him to just stick around. He's feeling very optimistic about the direction of his life. As for what Miss Alesia had going on, in addition to working, Sis was also a full-time student. She was very, very passionate about both her schoolwork and her career life. This really attracted Jeremy to her. He really admired her ambition, and he felt like this was just the perfect setup. She had come into his life at the perfect time. He is feeling all ambitious. He got goals, and he is ready to achieve them. And he has a woman that's equally ambitious and well on her way to being successful. And so, you know, together they were trying to give Jay-Z and Beyonce, okay? That was the vibe. Now, granted, you can have all of the ambition in the world and it not stem from some sort of trauma or anything other than you just wanting to do better and succeed and have goals and have a certain vision for it, the way you want your future to go. But this was not the case for these two. We already know where Jeremy's comes from. He was in jail, self-reflecting. He wanted to make changes for his life and his daughter. But Alesia's, hers stemmed from her childhood trauma. She was a victim of abuse in her childhood. She wanted to make sure that she never had to depend on anyone else. And when she envisioned her future, she saw herself as successful, you know, strong, independent, and not needing no man, but also having a man because sis wanted a man. She had also fantasized about having a man that would love her and be her knight in shining armor and protect her in ways that she had not been protected in her past. In talking to Jeremy, she got to see the very nurturing, loving side of him, and that really attracted her to him. She also felt like he could protect her as well. I mean, she did meet him in jail, child. Nevertheless, Jeremy has all of the qualities of her ideal man, and so she is very much invested in this relationship. Furthermore, Alesia could not have children on her own, and the fact that Jeremy already had a daughter that was fairly young, paired with the fact that he was extremely crazy about her, he was working on a custody agreement which would allow him to have more time with her. To her, all of these things meant that she would have the opportunity to have a family of her own after all. And granted, there are other options and avenues she could have taken to have a child or a family. I guess this was an easy, just add water, ready-made version of the little family that she wanted. A year into their relationship, Jeremy proposes. He is sure that this is the woman he wants to be with forever, and he does not need any more time to figure it out. The two have a very, very cute and intimate wedding. It's just their closest friends, their closest family members, and a really good time. After the wedding, Alesia gets a job at an insurance company. Jeremy, he begins driving trucks for a concrete company. The two are extremely happy and life is good for them. They're really enjoying the newlywed life. They're also a really good start and they're very much flourishing as a young couple. Until fast forward 3 years later, they have now been ambushed while sitting inside of their car. And no one knows why. The investigators have scoured the scene. They have spoken to the witnesses, they have spoken to family members, and they cannot figure out who will want to hurt this couple and why. The person most likely to have an answer to that is Alesia. And at this point, they're very, very anxious to talk to her, but they couldn't speak with her right away because Alesia had undergone surgery to remove a bullet from her back and she was now in a coma. They were so anxious to talk to her. They were checking every 3 to 4 hours on her status to see if she was awake and ready to tell them whatever she could remember, if she could remember anything. After several hours with little to no progress from Alesia, they decided to go back and speak with people in the neighborhood and the person who made the 911 call. The witness tells them that at the time he was standing in his own yard just a couple of houses down. He noticed the car was sitting down there briefly with the lights off, and then, he's minding his own business. He hears the gunshots. When he looks back down that way, he sees the car coast down the hill a little bit, and then moments later he sees the lights come on. They talked to a few of the other witnesses. Some reported seeing a tan SUV in the area not far from where the incident had taken place. There was also one that said that the assailant had entered that tan vehicle on the passenger side, which lets them know that now we're looking for 2 people instead of 1. Now our suspect list has doubled. In the day following the attack, Alesia, she wakes up from her coma and she finds that her mother, as well as Jeremy's mother, are both by her bedside. They have both been by her bedside the entire time, waiting on her condition to improve and just, trying to be supportive. As soon as she wakes up, the first thing out of her mouth is, "Where's Jeremy?" Neither of the mothers want to answer that question. Neither one of them want to be the one to break it to her. She begins demanding an update of her husband. She is rubbing on her little ring and she's like, "Where is Jeremy? What's going on?" Jeremy's mother then decides that she's going to be the one to just go ahead and break it to her that her husband had not survived the attack, unfortunately. The perpetrator had approached their vehicle on his side, which was the passenger side, and so he suffered most of the shots. He was hit 3 times versus her 1. Hearing the news that her husband did not make it, and she becomes hysterical. She is screaming, she is crying, and she's just pretty much distraught. Then she experiences a little bit of denial. She's like, no, this can't be true. This can't be right. This can't be life. No, I'm not accepting that. She was torn up. And Jeremy's mother, granted, she is going through her own grief. She's lost her child, her son. She's very much going through it herself, but she had grown to love Alesia like a daughter over the years that she had been dating and married to her son. And so she really wanted to be there to support her as well and lift her up in any way that she could, despite her going through her own mess. Furthermore, that was not the extent of the trauma that Alesia was about to be faced with, because of course she had just waken up. So she had not been given an update on her own condition. Doctors come into the room and they tell Alesia that the bullet that hit her actually hit her spine, causing a lot of damage, and that she was now paralyzed from the waist down. With how severe the damage was to her spinal cord, she would never walk again. Like, there was literally no chance of it happening. When she hears this news, she reacts just as heartbroken and hysterically and distraught as she had hearing the news about Jeremy. It was a lot for one day. Hell, that's a lot for a lifetime. Then in come investigators into the room because they need to question Alesia and try to see if they can get a better understanding as to who will want to hurt the couple and why. It was very much obvious to them that that was the motive, just to hurt them. The incident had taken place at 5:33 a.m. They tell Alesia to run down everything that she had done beginning the evening prior to that, because they were thinking that maybe somebody could have followed her home, maybe she was out and about. And that's what happened. That's what led them back to her home. Alesia is giving them the details, and she tells them that she had actually attended a party the evening before, and she didn't get home until 3 a.m. When she arrives home, Jeremy is awake, and he is questioning her about why she had been out so late. He was very irritated at the fact that she had been out so late. Furthermore, he had called her several times, but she had only answered one call. And so he's like, you out here really wilding. First of all, you're out late, then you want to not answer your phone. What's good? Right. Alesia's way of smoothing things over with Jeremy is initiating a little adult exchange. The two get in the shower together and it's all hot and steamy, doing what y'all be doing. Jeremy actually has to be at work in a little bit because, mind you, it's like roughly around 4 now, and he had to be at work, I believe, at 6. Alesia did not have to be at work that day, and something was wrong with their car, so the plan was for her to drop him off at work, go get the car taken care of, and then pick him up after the fact. So the two get out of the shower. He gets dressed for work. She puts on whatever she had on, child, I don't know. And then they leave the house. Now, according to Alesia, they go get into the car and they don't make it far throughout the neighborhood because a red SUV comes and pulls up in front of them, kind of blocks them off. She attempts to beep her horn, but they're not responding. She tries to go around the vehicle, but she said she was unable to. Then all of a sudden, 2 Hispanic men hop out, approach the vehicle on Jeremy's side, and start firing off shots. She says she heard the shots and then she just blacks out, like almost immediately. She also tells police that she had recognized them from about a week before. She had seen them at an auto parts store, and they had actually walked past her and complimented her on the rims that she had on the vehicle. She acknowledged them, thanked them for the compliment, and to her knowledge, that was it. When she sees them hop out of the vehicle and she recognizes them and sees the guns, immediately she believed that they were about to carjack her, but they don't attempt to take anything. And even with that, she still feels like that was the intent. It just went wrong and they decided last minute, never mind. Investigators have been looking forward to speaking with Alesia for so long. They were so anxious to talk to her. But after speaking with her, they had more questions than they had answers. Is the SUV tan, girl, or is it red? If it was about to be a carjacking and that's the intent, why would they approach on the passenger side versus the driver's side? If it's 2 of them, why not approach on both sides and clear the car at the same time? It caused more questions than they even had before. Like, nothing made sense. They also note that it struck them as odd that Jeremy's window was down and none of the other car windows were down, but I can think of a million reasons as to why that would be a justifiable thing. Maybe Jeremy was smoking a cigarette. Maybe Jeremy was hot and she wasn't. Maybe Jeremy was throwing something out of the window. They're confused, but they don't want to apply any more duress or stress to Alesia, and so they don't tell her that she has now confused them even more. They just thank her, tell her that if she remembers anything else, to give them a call, and try to just walk out puzzled. They also realized that Alesia had just gone through something very traumatic and she was very heavily medicated, so she could easily be a little confused. Maybe it is tan. Maybe later on she'll call us back and say, you know what, it was tan. Like, we'll give her time to clear her mind and maybe she can tell us something else that is actually helpful. Investigators had talked to the witnesses 2-3 times over. They talked to Alesia. It didn't really get them nowhere, so they decide to look up some of the people that were at this party that Alesia mentioned she was at the night before. And when they speak to them, honey, the tea, it runneth over, okay? Apparently, Alesia was there the night before with her little side piece, Darrell Rogers. She had conveniently left that out of the tale, child. I guess just thought that wasn't important. The two had arrived together. They had spent the night all, booed up, looking like a couple, doing the things that couples do at a party. And they had also left together. But Alesia had completely left that out of her version of events. And somebody really knew and was telling her business, because they also let investigators know that the two had met months prior and had been sneaking and freaking ever since. Darrell was a bit of a bad boy. He had this bad boy, tough guy persona, and this really attracted Alesia to him. This nice little street hood edge that he had. She found it very attractive. We also know that Alesia needs a man that she feels protected by. And so that is another big plus for Darrell. He makes Alesia feel like he can protect her from anything. Like he can literally shield her from the world. Investigators decide first to confirm it on their own before they even bring it to Alesia's attention. And so they have her phone records pulled, and they see that, in fact, she has been talking to Darrell constantly. Over the preceding months, there have been numerous calls and texts between the two, all times of the night and all times of the day. They go back and ask Miss Alesia, "Are you familiar with the Darrell Rogers?" And she quickly responds, "I know of him." She ain't all that familiar, but she knows somebody by that name. They then tell her that they had heard through the grapevine that he and her had a little thing going on. And she quickly and very hastily tells them no such thing had ever happened between them. No such affair was a thing. They were only friends. That's it. And that her marriage was solid. Now, Jeremy, he didn't like her staying out late. He didn't mind letting her know that. And yes, they had had a couple of hiccups over the course of their 4 years, but nothing out of the norm. And their marriage was a good one. Like, she wouldn't have a reason to be out here cheating on Jeremy. For what? Jeremy's Uncle John, who initially seen the news coverage and came down to the scene, he had also given investigators a little tippy tip that he thought was kind of strange. Uncle John had gone to visit Alesia in her little hospital bed, and as he is leaving, there's this strange, unfamiliar man in a hoodie. He has the hood up and he is walking toward Alesia's room, and her sister is not far behind. He had never seen this guy before. It really struck him as odd, and granted, it could have been a friend of the sisters because it appeared that they could have possibly been together, but they were not walking exactly side by side. Like they were a little, one was a little ahead of the other. So he was kind of like, you know what, maybe it's a friend of the sisters. I don't know. But just in case, in the event that it's not, and it really is something that can help the case, I'm going to tell the investigators. I'm going to let y'all know. But he had a feeling that it was not something as simple as this just being her sister's friend. Like something in his little spirit said, nah, something is up. When they bring this to her attention and ask her about her mystery visitor, she completely shuts down. She doesn't want to talk about it at all, period. Alesia flatfoot refuses to say anything about this visitor. In their mind, this could possibly be the guy who did this to her and her husband. And she's protecting him because inadvertently she is now protecting herself. Maybe he came there, threatened her, and she is scared to even talk about it. Like maybe he had found out what her hospital room number was and decided to come there, pay her a visit, give her a little threat and say, look, keep it on the hush or we will, we'll be back. To them, this made sense that she would not tell them about it, because if he'd snuck it in before, gotten into her room before, then he could very well do it again. They're not there around the clock to protect her. She knows this. So if that is the case, then of course she would be reluctant to give them any kind of information. And I in no way mean this to be funny, but let's address the elephant in the room here. If he did come into the room, she's pretty much helpless. Investigators, they don't press the issue, but they don't give up either. They go and ask that sister about the visitor, and the sister was like, no, that was not my friend. I don't even know who that man was. But she does tell investigators that yes, he did come into the room while I was in there, and The two had a very brief conversation, but I couldn't hear it because he had approached her bedside and he began whispering in her ear. Everything he ever said the whole time he was there, he whispered directly into her ear. All of her responses, he held his little ear to her lips and she whispered back. And so the sister didn't hear anything. Investigators enlist the help of that sister and the mother and try to get them to convince her to give any information up that she has. Don't be afraid. If it's a thing where he came there and he threatened her, they will very, very gladly offer her the protection she needed. And if that's not the case either, she needs to let them know what the visit was about. Like, be forthcoming. We trying to solve this thing, girl. This angle does work. The mother and sister speak with her, encourage her to tell the truth, and Alesia begins to tell them a lot. First, she admits that the affair rumors between her and Darrell are actually true. Then she names him as the shooter. She tells them that he was actually the one that ambushed them that morning. She said that he had become increasingly jealous of Jeremy over the past couple of weeks. And he was telling her, she needs to leave him. He wants to be with her. But she told him that she still very much loved her husband and wanted the marriage. And this was just, a fling. Nothing more, nothing less. And she did not want anything serious. She was not leaving her man for him. She says that although she does tell him that she can't leave her husband, she will, however, continue to see him because she has fun with him. Honey, they bump and grind and have a good time. She doesn't mind being with him to an extent, but he couldn't have it all. She was expecting for them to come to some sort of agreement, but it just results in him being more jealous of Jeremy because now he knew for sure that the highest he was going to climb on the rank was number 2 and that she was not leaving her husband for him. Darrell very desperately wanted the spot that Jeremy was in. He had become a little bit more reckless after this, threatening to expose her and things like that. So it gradually becomes a very toxic kind of situation, but she said that she just kind of didn't know how to get out of it. She knew Darrell for his work, so she knew he was fully capable of doing something like this, and this was what she was afraid of. So a little part of her was actually afraid to break it off because she didn't want something like this to happen. Darrell had a bit of a quick temper. It didn't take much to provoke him and get him to this hostile state. There have been a lot of times where he will become very, very angry and enraged over like the smallest little thing. And what he had most recently become very upset about was the fact that while they were at this party together, Jeremy kept calling his wife's phone. He kept calling Alesia's phone, and when she finally does answer, he tells her that she needs to come home right away. It's not acceptable for you as a married woman to be out here running the streets and at parties at 3 a.m. So wrap it up, sweetie, and bring it home. Darrell did not like this at all. He was very much pissed. It really rubbed him the wrong way that he could be out having a good time with the woman that he loves, and then another man could just call her and tell her, that's enough, come home. As for the hospital visit and the whispers, according to Alesia, he was coming there to apologize because she is the woman that he loves. He is sorry that he had hurt her. He said that he hated to see her like this and that he just had to come because he could not wait to let her know that he was sorry and that he just felt so bad. Like he never meant for this to happen. Then all of a sudden he goes from apologizing to threatening her, telling her he knows where her sister lives, where her mother lives, and that if she gave his name to police, he could easily find them and would do the same to them. They'd be in the same predicament situation as she is. And she admits to making up the story about the Hispanic men being the ones who were responsible for what had happened because she was afraid. They make the decision to put Alesia into protective custody immediately and go looking for Darrell. It takes them about a week to get a warrant for his arrest, and once they do, they get on the streets looking for him, but they cannot find Darrell anywhere, like nowhere. And they still don't know who was driving the getaway car. So when they don't have any luck finding him, they decide to appeal to the public and put his picture out there and let them know, like, look, if you see sis, call us. 528 cash. They also present the story like, be careful because he can be armed and dangerous. And so when Darrell sees this, he's like, girl, let me go talk to these people. He contacts them and he lets them know that he will gladly come down to the station and talk to them. They're completely surprised by this. They're like, well, that was easy. He tells them he is on his way to answer any questions that they have and to also clear his name that is being dragged through the mud down on Channel 13 News. Darrell gets down to the station. He tells them he is in no way involved in this ordeal, period, at all. That he wasn't even in town when all of this went down. Bars. He can actually call somebody right now who can attest to that alibi and tell them, yes, he was at my house in Missouri. He also denies any allegations of an affair with Alesia. He says that the two were not romantically involved at all. That is a lie. And he doesn't know what's going on or why his name has been dragged in it, but whatever they've been told is not true. He also has a very smug attitude, and he's being very sarcastic in a lot of his responses to the investigators. And honey, all of that subsides when they let him know that they have pulled his records. You know, they're good for pulling the nasty little phone record. They have confirmed that his cell phone was pinging off the towers right near the scene at the time of the crime. So that was a lie. They place him in cuffs, honey, read him his rights and let him know he is now officially under arrest. Then they ask him for the name of the getaway driver. And he, of course, he didn't give that up. He said, no ma'am. He was not trying to cooperate with them and give up whomever. Now, although they still did not know who the second person was, they had the shooter. So they decided to go forward with his trial, hoping that whatever didn't come out in the wash will come out in the rinse. And that, you know, they could get the getaway driver later. But of course, this is the most important part of the case, so they treated it as such. Not having the name of the getaway driver was not going to break their case against Darrell, which, according to them, they had a very tight case. They were very confident in their ability to convict him of this crime, especially considering that they had a star witness, Alesia. Miss Alesia was willing to come down, testify against Darrell, and let them know what really happened. It was a pretty clean and tight case, or so it seemed. Months go by while he is awaiting his trial, and Alesia is getting better. She's recovering. She is now adjusting to her life, not being able to walk. And of course, because she is a witness, she still has police protection and she is in protective custody. The prosecution, they have finalized their case against Darrell completely. They were just waiting on the start of the trial, honey, to wear sis out. Okay? Then a week before the preliminary hearing, Alesia has her lawyer reach out to the prosecution to say, never mind. That on second thought, she could not testify against Darrell at all. She could not name him as the shooter, him or anyone else for that matter, really. She also claims that she had prematurely named him as the perpetrator before, under intense pressure of her family and the police. And so before this goes to trial and goes a little bit too far, she wants to just go ahead, recant her entire statement, and bow out gracefully. Without any other evidence that supported Darrell having anything to do with this, aside from Alesia, of course, naming him as the shooter, they were forced to just drop the charges and let him out, like free him immediately. The cell phone records, him being in the area, that alone is not enough to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that he was the one that did all of this. Jeremy's family is devastated by this, and rightfully so. They're thinking they're about to get justice for their loved one, and then all of a sudden she's like, psych, I don't know who it was. Like, girl. Then it is revealed that not long after Darrell is released from prison, Alesia begins talking to him regularly again. Now, initially, he was mad at her for naming him as the suspect. Girl, you had me locked up. So he wasn't trying to talk to her, but Alesia began to play up on her injury, like, oh, woe is me, look at the state that I'm in, like, forgive me, don't you feel bad for me? And eventually, he kind of does feel bad for her, like, he really did feel bad. He really did empathize with Alesia. And it also didn't hurt the fact that she offered to share some of the money with him, because she had received her insurance money from the loss of her husband, which she was more than happy to share with and splurge on Darrell in an effort to kind of like draw him back in. So when her insurance check clears and settles into her bank account all nice and cute, he forgives her. The two actually rekindle their romance, begin dating, and they move in together. Darrell is her lover and her caretaker, okay? Her lover and her secretary, if you will. And when it comes to the investigation, detectives are still reaching out to her regularly because they're not going to just close the case. And they're still reaching out to her to, you know, just see if anything has changed, anything she remembered that she didn't before, any new developments, and also to give her any kind of update that they may have had for her. But eventually, like, the communication between her and the detectives kind of subsides and dies down, and she is just feeling like, you know what, maybe it's good that I can just move on now with my life and put this all behind me. Meanwhile, she is out here blowing money fast. Sis is buying cars. She's bought a new house, of course, for her and Darrell. She's buying jewelry, just spending a lot of money. A lot. And the calls from the investigators had not slowed down because they had lost any interest in the case or they had given up. They had actually decided to take a step back and look at Alesia a little closer. Is she really the grieving widow that she had appeared to be all this time, or could something else be going on here? At the rate that she was spending money, plus her having to fund Darrell's lifestyle, within 3 years, all of the insurance money is gone. Furthermore, having gone 3 years now with limited intimacy, and them just pretty much now living together for the first time, getting to know each other and getting really used to each other, unfortunately, honey, the fire had sizzled down. The flame was gone. However, they both by this time had become interdependent of each other, so both of them felt like they were just stuck in the relationship. Alesia, because he was her caregiver, she didn't have anybody else that could come and take care of her around the clock. And for him, as for Darrell, he didn't even have a job, so he had no income. He lived in her house, and leaving Alesia would mean leaving behind really his security. He literally could not afford to. Detectives had also eased up on calling Alesia because they had received a tip and a lead as to who that getaway driver might be. And so they were out there pursuing that. Jamar Moore was a very close friend of Darrell's. He was a lot younger than Darrell, and he treated Darrell like a big brother, like with that big brother respect and loyalty. But it was a little deeper than that because he genuinely idolized Darrell, and he would do anything Darrell asked him to do. Like, he was kind of a flunky, kind of a follower. Furthermore, they find out that he kind of, he down to do some shady stuff for a little piece of coin, a little money. So they have no doubt in their mind that if Darrell wanted him to do something like this, he definitely probably would have agreed to do it. They decide to bring Jamar in for questioning because you know what they say, 2 men can keep a secret if one of them is dead. In this case, both of them were very much alive and well. They question him, and it does not take much effort or much time for him to crack and blow the case wide open, child. He let the floodgates open and spilled all of the tea. Secrets for what? I told you how they had begun to suspect that Alesia was not the grieving widow that she had portrayed herself to be all this time, and that she possibly could have had something to do with this. Well, they were right. This is what Jamar tells detectives. Shortly after Alesia had gotten married, she became bored with her husband. She felt like, this is not as exciting as I thought it would be. She meets Darrell. They begin having an affair, and the spiciness of their affair, coupled with his bad boy persona, had Alesia's nose wide open. After a little time, it became very clear to her that Darrell was the man that she wanted to be with. This was the one. The only problem with that was the fact that her husband was in the way of that. And the problem with just leaving her husband was the fact that he made most of the money, which she was using to hang out with Darrell and give him money. Darrell did not have a job, nor did he have steady income, so she did not want to just up and leave with him and ride off into the sunset. Girl, what was they gonna ride on? What? Well, I guess this could have rode on his back, but whatever. Instead of Darrell having conventional employment, he was a hustler, but apparently he wasn't that good of a hustler because he was struggling and getting money from Alesia. Remember when I told you that after they got married, Alesia got her a nice little job down to the insurance company? Well, sis had signed Jeremy up for a life insurance policy, unbeknownst to him. Named herself as the beneficiary for $400,000. That is the life insurance policy that she had been living off of all of this time, and she had not given one single little copper penny to Jeremy's daughter. Like, no money. Not to his mother, not anybody. She had paid for the funeral, and that was it. So instead of it being, oh, Darrell wanted to be with me, but I wasn't going to leave my husband, no, it was a very mutual thing. They wanted to be with each other, but they needed money. So they come up with this plan to take this life insurance policy out. They plan out this whole entire ambush. And it's actually Alesia's idea that she also gets shot during the ambush to make it seem a little more organic, a little more real and believable. So she tells Darrell to shoot her in the leg. It was supposed to just be a superficial shot in the leg, but this nut ended up paralyzing her. Or maybe that was instant karma. Who knows? Anyway, she was supposed to say it was two Hispanic men. They were going to never catch these Hispanic men because they don't exist. Or, you know how the police get down. Find two Hispanic men, but that's a different story. Then she would cash in on the insurance policy. They would take the money and live happily ever after. Well, they had also promised Jamar $2,000 to be the getaway driver. However, when things go left and shit hits the fan, Alesia is left with a big old mess to clean up, child. A huge mess. And so she cleans that up as best she can. But see, her and Darrell start having issues. And so she just decided, you know what? I'm going to throw your ass under the bus and be this grieving widow. Then she had a change of heart and was like, you know what? Never mind. We can still be together. Let's make it right. Just a mess. She decides to put on this Oscar-worthy performance as this grieving widow when she talks to detectives for months. And when they begin to call her less and less, sister's thinking she made it. She's like, okay, we're in the clear. Like, we really pulled this off. She had lost the use of her lower half, but she had made it out with her life, and she had the man that she loved. Well, initially, this is how it started. And so she was happy, you know, at first. And as if her blowing the money and losing her lover's interest wasn't bad enough, now their third accomplice, Mr. Jamar Moore, was giving them up down to the police station, just completely selling them out, which he was more than happy to do at this point because they had not paid him that $2,000. Them receiving all of that money and flaunting it the way that they did and not giving him his little $2,000 really did not sit well with him. He was pissed about it. Furthermore, he wasn't even spending all that much time with his homie Darrell anymore because he had moved across town with his woman, having to be her caretaker around the clock. He didn't have time to be out on the block bars. Now that one was intentional. Jamar gladly tells them everything. And it actually turns out that he was also at that party the night before. And they were there to go over the details one last time before they put their plan in motion. Then Alesia goes home to complete her leg of the race, which is luring her unsuspecting husband into an ambush. Like, how do you have sex with a man? Your man. And you have a whole nother one waiting down the street to take him out. Like, who does that? She and Jeremy are in the car driving to the spot. As soon as they get to that point, she stops the car. She turns the lights off on the vehicle, rolls Jeremy's window down. And I'm sure he's confused, like, what the hell is going on? But she does this so that Darrell can have a more ease of access. He comes out of nowhere on cue, does what he does, takes off on foot, gets into the Yes Tan SUV. She, of course, lied to authorities to throw them off. And then Jamar drove him away. Of course, with this new information, the detectives that go and arrest the other two, and they put Jamar under arrest for his involvement. And now 3 years after the fact, the three of them are all sitting in jail waiting on their trial date to start. They had 3 separate trials. Oh, but they're not done with their shenanigans. During this time, while they are locked away, Darrell writes a letter, sends it out to his family member with instructions to mail it now to Alesia. Because, you know, by law, they couldn't mail each other letters. The letter tells Alesia to be calm, not to worry, and that he is going to fix this. And she has no idea what that means, but she feels very confident in it. It's giving her a little boost to her morale because she still loves Darrell. She still trusts Darrell. And she's like, you know what? He gonna come through and protect me. Whatever it is that he has up his sleeve, hopefully it works. Honey, what was up Darrell's sleeve? The night before the first day of Alesia's trial, his lawyers go to the prosecutors and tell them that they want to make a deal. Darrell is willing and ready to testify against Alesia completely in order to receive a reduced sentence. If they can give him a nice deal, he will give them a full detailed confession and he will sit up there in court and point her out. Okay? He's gonna tell. Now, the prosecutors, they felt like they didn't even need that. Like, girl, we good. One, they didn't really trust him. They felt like Alesia had played them enough. And so they were like, you know what? We don't even need that. No deal. No thank you. And so they respectfully declined his offer, and he is pissed because he thought he was going to slide in there last minute and cut a deal. At first, the jury, they had a lot of sympathy for her looking at her. She looked like this sad, poor little widow, and then she was in a wheelchair, so they were feeling bad for her for that until they heard the details of the case, and then they were like, yeah, fuck her, and handed that girl a life sentence. Darrell goes to trial in 2009, and as a last-ditch effort to kind of gain some leniency and minimize his time, he puts in a guilty plea. Just pleads guilty. Doesn't work. He is also given a life sentence. As for Jamar Moore, for his limited involvement and his cooperation and help getting this little case to the finish line, he is only given 3 years. Which I feel like, all things considered, the fact that, yeah, you did help, but you didn't have a direct hand in it. And you did make a way for the family to, you know, receive justice and closure. I feel like that's fair. Now, I wasn't going to bring this up. I wasn't. I didn't want to. But I have to. And so, here we are. Darrell Rogers' birthday is August 26, 1973. So, Virgos, this is another L for you. And actually, I didn't even feel bad about reporting it. I was like, hi, the Virgos never have to take a hit. They're such nice, sweet people. Like, Virgos are very peaceful. And it's just like, girl, we know with some of y'all, that's the front. So I was so glad to, you know, expose y'all in the last video. And then when I got to this video and I saw it was a Virgo, I'm like, again. But then I looked up Miss Alesia's birthday. Unfortunately, it is October 25th, 1976, and sis is a Scorpio. We don't have to talk about it though. She was almost a Libra. That is pretty much it for this case. Both of them are just rotting away in prison. And Jeremy's family, they received the justice and the closure that they deserved. End of story. Honey, the geese are really working my nerves right out here. Now, as for how we got out of the break room, y'all, so after we had been in there marinating for about an hour and a half, finally we see through the glass, like on the door, the little cleaning lady is pushing her little trash bin past the door, and we immediately, of course, go to the door and we like, hey girl, let us out, girl, let us out. She's like, oh, I'm sorry. So apparently what happens is, like I said, she was on the night shift and she would clean the break rooms up, and people would still come in there like late before they went home and not clean up after themselves. And the ladies on the morning shift, they had begun to complain on her, saying that she was not cleaning at night. So in an effort to kind of, you know, keep her name clear and not get in trouble, she had started locking the break room after a certain hour. Like within the last 2 hours of our business hours, break room was locked. And because we never went to lunch that late, we never knew this at all. So, learning experience. But yeah, she let us out. And then our supervisor had the audacity to be mad at us. He was like, where y'all been? And I'm like, Miss Girl, you knew we were going to lunch. Why didn't you come check on us? Because you knew we were going to lunch and then we just disappeared. Like, you didn't try to see if we were okay. I don't know if he thought we all left for lunch or what, but he was pissed that for an hour and a half he had an empty office. Had to do everything himself, which he ain't never do nothing anyway, so it wasn't gonna kill him to do a little piece of work for an hour and a half. And honey, when I would see Brittney in passing, we would just say hey and go. Not hey Brittney, not hey name twin, none of the things. Just hey, how you doing today? That was it. And honey, just like that was it for that situation, that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, I appreciate you so much for spending time with me, and I will see you again on Tuesday. Peace. I'm here doing this every Thursday. Okay, what? Why would I say Thursday in front of Tuesday? First year, he decided to jail for assault for a little while. Well, not for a little while, child. Why would you say that? But you know how they say, oh, do commute. That's it for that, child. I just wanted to tell that little story, and I don't even remember why I told it, actually, at this point. This really, really attracted Jeremy to her because he really, really admired. If I say really, really one more time, Jeremy's mother did. What? Why do I want to say Dens? It was obvious that the murder, not the murder. The geese are going nuts, okay? Nuts. Y'all, when I say I love this python color, girl, it's easily one of my favorite eyeshadow colors of all time. She is like, oh yeah, I'm familiar. Why do I always want to say familiar? It's pho. Who am I talking to? I guess me. And that her marriage was solid. Now, why did I sing like a rock in my head? Childish. Why is he heading to Alesia's hotel room? Goodness. He probably headed to that a couple of times too. Maybe he found out where she was, what her hotel. Why do I want to say hotel so bad? Investigators do enlist the help of that sister as well as. Y'all see me? You see me scratching my boobs? That's not cute. First, she admits what? Jeremy had essentially cut his time short with, I was gonna say his girlfriend, but then it's Jeremy's wife. It's like, girl, I'm stuck. It takes him about a week to get a search warrant, not a search warrant, to adjust to her life now as a girl, you was about to say paralegal and looks so dumb. Still has police protection and she is not long after Darrell is released from prison. Damn, I could have said jail and that would have been another bar. Is she really the grieving widow? What is a widow, girl? They had received a lead. Girl, what's in my eye? It's not the grieving widow that she had what's the word? And of course she puts on this Oscar-worthy is it the Oscars for actors? Shit, it's gonna be the Oscars for actors today. I ain't scared of y'all. Jamar tells them is his name Jamar? I think it's Jamar. If it's not, it's gonna be Jamar the rest of this video. Oh shit, I got 5 missed calls. Now my mama asking my mom live. Let me text her back because my mother, ignore enough phone calls and texts. She will have the police come do a welfare check. And Jeremy's family, they received the justice and yeah. Let me get a thumbnail. You know what? If I was accepting applications, I might have tried to go out and get fluid daddies today. I ain't gonna lie. But I'm about to relocate, so I'm not accepting applications right now. There's a hiring freeze.